Empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? 4 to 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. We are celebrating a 54-10 defeat of the Iowa Hawkeyes. We got them back for 17. It felt great, but now we have a major challenge heading to State College to play the Penn State Nittany Lions in a place that is notoriously hard to play at. So we are going to break down our game thoughts. We're going to break down a play and just kind of go over some of the things that we saw in the game. It was a very weird game because, you see the scoreboard, it's 55-10 that you feel pretty good about, but we left a lot of meat on the bone. We had probably the best field position I've ever seen in the history of a college football game. We were on the plus side of the field basically all day. They threw a pick six. I mean, it was just a comedy of errors by Iowa's offense. So thank you guys for making it easy on us. But first off, thank you guys as always. We appreciate you guys. Click subscribe, leave us a like. I need to know, who are your MVPs from the Ohio State-Iowa game? Tommy Eichenberg was fantastic. A lot of stars in this one. The defense really carried the mail, shut down a very porous Iowa offense. But I'd like to know your stars. Leave us a like if you enjoy this content. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to BuckeyeScoop.com. We are on this thing all the time, all day, and we are grinding. But appreciate you guys as always. Thank you guys. That being said, bring in my good friend, Nevadabuck. Nevada, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Buckeyes covered the spread against Iowa, which always makes me happy. And on to Penn State. Got a big week ahead of us, but, enough things to yell at the players about a kind of an uneven game against Iowa, despite the 44-point margin of victory. So it was a fun weekend all the way around.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite kinds of games because, the scoreboard, it was pretty lopsided, 54-10. Voters and AP people are going to see that and say, oh, wow, what an incredible win. But the coaching staff in the Woody Hayes is not going to be pleased with a lot of things that happened. The short yardage was a mess. A lot of the plays were a mess. We just have much, much, much better players than they do. So, we end up having a dominant victory. And Iowa's offense is as bad as maybe the 2015 Rutgers. I mean, I've never seen an offense that bad in the Big Ten. Literally can't complete a pass. 6 turnovers. I mean, I don't know if I was a defensive player on that Iowa team. I don't even know if I'd let those guys sit on the same plane. I'd make them walk back to Iowa City. But what were your initial thoughts immediately after the game? And then if you had a chance to rewatch it, I rewatched it twice just to kind of get my thoughts in order. But what were your thoughts immediately at the end of the game yesterday?
Well, it was just kind of a hollow feeling. I think I hadn't really looked at the stats until later. I hadn't had a chance to really absorb the game, but I was happy that we'd won so lopsided. As I mentioned, I was happy that we'd covered the spread because I'd had a big bet on Ohio State to win. But it just felt like it was one of those games. It felt like it was a sleepy noon kickoff game, and we're looking forward to Penn State coming off the bye week, and didn't play well. Just didn't play well at all. And offensively, it felt like CJ was trying to do too much. It felt like Ryan Day was trying to do too much. And luckily, our defense continues to improve. And as you said, Iowa's offense is historically bad. I mean, like, so bad that every time they had the ball, I fully expected them to turn it over, or that they throw a pick six, or something bad would happen. And I can't remember feeling that way about a college football game in quite some time. So no, it was a weird feeling for sure. Certainly a weird feeling when you give Iowa one of the biggest beatings in their history. I think one of the biggest beatings in the Ferentz era, and so it was weird. It was weird all the way around.
Yeah, I totally agree. They're a team that has been known for their offensive line for 30 years. I mean, Kirk Ferentz is an offensive line savant. Worked for the Cleveland Browns in the mid 90s when they had really good offensive lines. And I personally, when I was a player, would get really sick hearing about how great Iowa's offensive line was, and the Iowa method of bringing in a big tight end and making me into a tackle and being athletic. And they were garbage. That was as bad of an Iowa offensive line. Their right tackle was like home run derby. Whoever got the line up against that guy on 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10, I mean, it was a pressure, a sack. It's like automatic. And I think that, I'm sure they're young, they're struggling, but in the Big Ten, nobody cares about that. I mean, they're just really poor. And the only thing that was worse than the O-line was the quarterback. Because I couldn't believe the first play of the game, little sprint out pass that they probably practiced 50 times this week, throws a pick. They get down deep in the close end of the shoe, throw a pick six to Tommy Eichenberg. They get the ball back on a pick on the first play of the third quarter when we kick off. And the first play, they fumble the QB center. I mean, it was almost like, it was so funny that you felt bad laughing about it, because I'm just like, I couldn't believe that that's actually a Division I coaching staff putting that on the field, just in terms of the decision making and the folly of errors. I mean, I just and again, like Iowa, traditionally they're very sound at everything because they have to be. They don't get ultra talented guys to go to Iowa very often unless they're from the state, and that state might have maybe one 4 or 5 star guy a year. Caden Proctor is going to go there to play tackle. God bless him. The safety from last year, Xavier Nwapkaba or whatever his name was, he didn't even play. I was looking for him. He was number 1 in the program. So they have to be good at every little thing. They have to redshirt guys, have them play 5 years, develop them. And, I don't know what's gone on in that program for the last few years, but, it really has fallen off the earth, as is Wisconsin. So those are two things that are real interesting to watch. Nevada, we're going to break down a play, but some of the key things that I noticed were how, we had a totally different look on defense. They've been a too high safety. They've run tight defense, too high safety for 30 years. I played against it. I did film breakdowns of it. It's literally the easiest film breakdown of the entire year, because you just type the exact same defensive front every single play, and you write the exact same coverage every single play. And so coming off a bye week, they completely changed the game. They basically, they didn't run bear defense, but they kind of went with the Virginia Tech plan, where they ran a lot of cover zero, which against Ohio State is just incredibly ballsy given how good Emeka and Marvin are. And, there were a lot of times we couldn't make them pay for it, because, if you're going to run zero one-on-one coverage, no safety help versus those receivers, you're probably going to get torched. But we missed a lot. And talk a little bit about your thoughts on the offense as you've digested the game and you've seen it, a few times.
Well, I think it's come down to a couple of things, and I'd written a little bit about this in my Uncomfortable Truths articles, this weekend. Is one, our running game right now has too many loser plays in it, and we'll diagnose a loser play a little bit later in the podcast. But loser plays are ones that just have no chance of success. You can blame the offensive line. You get a 5 Orlando Paces up in the front, and it doesn't matter. The play's not going to work. And we run too many loser plays, especially in the red zone. And unless without C.J. Stroud running as a true constraint, meaning presenting an option to run, an option to bootleg, an option to keep, an option to do something other than to hand off, the numbers are just out of whack. And as a result, these plays get blown up. And I know I loved hearing all the false bravado when they hired Justin Fry, and he was like, "Oh, we'll be able to run anytime. My daughter will be able to point and say, we're going to run right here, and everybody in the stands will know we're going to run, and we'll still be able to do it." It doesn't work that way. If they have 9 guys and you have 7, they are going to blow you up at the line, and the play's going to look bad. And we'll diagnose one of those plays on this, and we just have too many loser plays. And secondly, I think it's really now an open question about our wide receivers being able to really create that type of separation to give those open looks to C.J. Stroud, because if he doesn't get those open looks, and he gets a little bit of pressure, he struggles. CJ threw the interception. He could have thrown 3 or 4 interceptions yesterday, and that's not going to get it done going forward. So while we scored 54 points, the offense is still putting up some gaudy numbers. We have some things to work on, and a lot of it comes down to scheme and play design, and that lies with Ryan Day, and I think he's got to be better.
Yeah, and I think, I talked to some people that really know Ryan's offense, and because I asked, is CJ allowed to change plays at the line? Can he audible? Can he get us out of plays that aren't going to work immediately? And the answer was no. It's a system. That's why you see Ryan burn a lot of timeouts, especially in the red zone, when the play isn't the look that they are used to or the look that they want. Because CJ can't change it. I mean, it's like seeing like a freight train coming at you and you can't get off the tracks. Like that's kind of what our running game's like sometimes. And I'm like, why are we running this into 2 free hitters? I mean, unless you have, I don't even think Jim Brown could survive that. And the thing about Iowa is, they're good statistically in defense, and they play in the Big Ten. So I mean, they're not, they're not playing super dynamic, super high flying aerial attacks. I mean, it's basically, can you stop the run in the Big Ten, and then you're top 10 or top 15 national defense. But like they don't have. They might have one guy, maybe two guys on their entire defense that would start for us, maybe play for us. 31's real good. The linebacker, I don't think I'd take him over Tommy. I might not take him over Steele. And they have a guy in the back end that would start for us for sure. Really talented player, but their guys up front aren't NFL caliber guys. And again, like I think sometimes people, are we being too critical? Are we being haters? And I don't think we are, because the coaching staff. If they're anything like the guys that I worked with when I was there, they didn't have a very fun film session today. There was, we gave up a sack fumble for a touchdown. We had interceptions, sloppy play, sloppy footwork. Enough stuff that it feels good to get that big win and that pretty number on the scoreboard. The 54-10 looks great. But these are kind of my favorite games because, all that's great, but there's a lot of stuff that really needs fixed fast because, I think when people get anxiety and nervous about how Ohio State won or how big they won, it's because they're comparing to, well, this have beaten Georgia, would have beaten Bama, would have beaten Tennessee, Clemson, the teams we're going to see in the playoffs. Because, we're going to speedboat every team in the Big Ten, and that's how it should be because the talent gap has never been wider in the history of Ohio State versus the Big Ten than it is right now. Like we recruit 5 stars at a national level, and most of these northern programs just haven't been able to keep up, and there's been a talent drain in the north. So, like the Wisconsin team, that was the worst Wisconsin team I've ever seen. Iowa just, I mean, when you watch their offense, is there a single NFL guy that you saw? Maybe one of the interior linemen eventually turns into one, but they didn't have, a dynamic running back, a dynamic guy in the back. They didn't have like a Sean Green, who's a great running back that played at Iowa. So it's going to be really interesting just seeing how that program moves forward. Nevada, I'm going to bring us into the film, and we're going to talk about one of these constrained plays that you talked about. This is one that I was in the suite watching the game. I couldn't believe this look and the fact that we actually ran this. So real quick for the people that are able to see this on YouTube, and if you're listening to this on our podcast formats, I'm just going to explain to it. It's basically, it's a double tight end set. You got Mitch Rossi, you've got Cade Stover, you got your 5 linemen across. At the top of the screen, you have man-to-man coverage on Emeka and Marvin, which is, most teams would not have the balls to play that because they're basically 2 first-team All-Americans at receiver. So you generally have to help against that. But, we call this play. These guys, again, like I would take my shots throwing to one of these 2 wide receivers, banking on the fact that these corners can't cover them, but we don't. So we run just our basic tight zone play. We fake the read option here. You can see CJ looks like he's reading the end, but since CJ has pulled this maybe one time in 2 years, teams don't honor that anymore. And if you just look at the sheer numbers we're going against, they have your 4D line normal, 6, but you have 6 across basically. It's basically goal line defense, and then you have 3 more in the box, and you only have 7 blockers. You have the 5 offensive linemen, 2 tight ends. CJ is a constrained guy, and then mine's your ball carrier. So basically, when you have 7 blockers and they have 9 guys in the box, there's going to be 2 free hitters. And, you hand it off, and it's 3rd and 2. And, we get a decent push, not a great push. I think Dewan's not good here. He needs to get down and get going. He doesn't have the urgency that he needs to get this block done. Gets pushed in the backfield by a guy that isn't nearly as talented as him. And, we get stopped. Nevada, what are your thoughts on this play? Obviously, we keep wishing that CJ would take one and pull this and run to the pylon and score a touchdown, but he doesn't. And I don't know if I'm sure that's Ryan's thing because he's the guy that installs the offense. But what are your thoughts on this play, this look, and basically everything I diagrammed so far?
Well, you just look at the guy who makes the play. It's the free hitter coming off the end. And he's running down the line as fast as he can and not even giving CJ another look. And he makes the play behind the line of scrimmage. And when you do that, you see what would have happened if CJ would have just pulled the ball out. walks into the end zone. The offensive line, the running backs. But to me, this is a loser play. And what Ohio State's got to do in this situation is go to the I formation or move the guy off and then run the speed option. I'd like to see them. If you go back to that look, the pre-snap look, they've got the guys out there on top. If you bring the running back over the other side and you run the speed option to the left side, you've got everybody sealed. You've got the running back and the quarterback against the right defensive end. That's it. That's the play into the end zone. And Ohio State could run that easily. They could run a pass off of that. There's so many things that they could do, but the one thing they can't do is run a play right into the teeth of as you talk about, a walled city. 7 blockers, and one of those blockers is Guy Scott. So it's not like that's like it's not like that's Josh Fryer or another Hammer. You're bringing in kind of a receiving tight end, and Cade's serviceable, but you've got 7 guys against 9. And until we can start figuring out how to equate those numbers, and the quarterback keep is the way to equate those numbers, because it gives those linebackers pause. It gives those defensive ends pause where they can't crash down on those plays. And I think that's why Ohio State was, bless his heart for all of JT Barrett's faults. That's why they were so good in the red zone on a short yardage, because he'd pull it out and kind of waltz around or stumble around the end into the end zone. And I think CJ's capable of doing that. And if you're not going to do it, then quit running plays that are designed like this, because they're not going to work. Because as long as you can just count the guys, 9 versus 7 is never going to get it done.
Yeah, and the other option is just throw the ball. I mean, again, like these guys are wound up by Iowa's cornerbacks. Like, I mean, these cornerbacks are absolutely mortified that they're going to throw the ball. And I mean, you've got all this free access, because he's not exactly bluffing when he shows. I mean, as soon as the ball snapped, he's coming forward. So if CJ pulls this right here, and we just get here and a slant, there's nobody here in this entire end zone. So again, it's just I don't get it. I'll never get it. Because again, you got to take what teams give you, and our offense is fantastic. We're number 1 in the country. So again, is it nitpicking? Sure, but we're also playing. We're gonna play real teams at the end of the season. We're not going to be playing Iowa and Michigan State and these other fruit baskets that we play in the Big Ten. Like, we're going to play guys that actually have other good players, actually kids that we've actually offered scholarships to. And I just, if you ever get this matchup, I just don't know how you don't take it. And again, I'm an offensive lineman, tough as nails, love toughness, love all that bullshit. But for me, if I have, like with Aaron Rodgers, like when he had Devontae Adams and it's 3rd and 1 and they single him up and load the box to stop AJ Dillon, I'm throwing it to Devontae. I'm sorry, but they can't cover the guy. Like, and Emeka is kind of the college version of that. They can't stick with him. So, when these guys aren't, I mean, they're just, they're literally selling out for the run. They're selling out for the A-gap run, and we run the A-gap run. So it just, and again, sometimes you get caught in places. Sometimes you do. Now, in my world, like, and again, I'm nowhere near Ryan's best offensive play caller we've probably had in Ohio State history. That being said, I just don't know how you can't give CJ a check where you tell this guy to run a slant versus basically an all-out blitz. I mean, this is cover 0, bring in the house. You got, I don't know. But yeah, it's an interesting look, but it'll be the thing that's going to be really interesting, since this gave us trouble, is will other teams adopt doing this versus us? Nevada, I imagine we're going to see this going forward. I imagine we'll see it against Penn State, because Penn State has Joey Porter Jr., who's probably first-team All-American type corner. That's going to be a war between him and Marvin or Emeka or whoever. But do you think we see more of this going forward? Because this was a ballsy move by Iowa, but and again, did we end up beating them by a ton? Yeah, because we just have better players. And CJ and Marvin and Emeka and those guys made some magnificent plays. Julian hit one over the top. But God, it's like if they're going to play press man cover 0, and you don't think Emeka can't win versus that, I don't know what we're doing.
Well, I think you're going to see it, because I think it is the blueprint in terms of how you try to contain this offense. You've got to pick your poison. Teams earlier in the year were kind of playing that shell. Notre Dame played kind of that deep shell, kind of gave us the run. But I think going up and playing and being real physical, wide receiver right up in their face, going up against them and kind of selling out. I mean, Penn State's got nothing to lose in this game. They're going to go all out. They're going to pull out every stop. They're going to play super aggressively. And I think and Michigan will do the same thing. I mean, we're going to see the same thing. It's going to if teams are going to beat Ohio State in the Big Ten, it's because they out physical us, and that is absolutely the blueprint to how to play us offensively, how to play us defensively. And I think we're going to absolutely see it, and we're going to have to be ready to respond. And again, 54 points was a pretty good response. 4 touchdown passes. Second half was certainly a response by C.J. Stroud, but we've got to be better. We've got to be better at taking what the defense has given us and making them respect us. Otherwise, just beating our head against the wall with this false bravado, we'll run when you know that we're going to run type of thing. That's not going to work. And we did that far too much against Iowa. I think we averaged less than 3 yards a carry, mine was 1.9 yards per carry, and that was with a 13-yard run. So his other 11 runs must have been like minus yards or something. So, our running game was almost impossibly bad. And I think the world of Trey Henderson and Mayan Williams. I think those are both starting backs in the NFL. So when that happens, you've got something, because you got one of the best offensive lines in college football, and you average, whatever we average, 66 yards rushing, then you've got scheme problems. That is all scheme. That is all play design. And again, that goes back to Day, Kevin Wilson, Justin Frye have got to figure that out, and they've got to be better, because we're going to need to be better to win out, and because that's the goal for this year, and it should be the goal.
And here, this is what I was talking about. The very next play, they go to it 4th and 1, 8-man box. You got your 6 across, goal line defense. You got your 2 free hitters. You got your tight end cross. But they're manned up across the board, and they decide to do a sprint out, which is an excellent call. Gets away from the muck. Nice, easy protection. You put this poor soul on Marvin 1-on-1 with all this field from the hash to the. You just can't stay with a receiver for that long. And CJ, threads the needle, great throw, sprint left, and Marvin makes a great catch, and again, that's what, they got to it. So I give them credit for that, because, I was critical on the last play, but that's, you have to almost have an automatic check to that when you get that heavy box, because I just don't know how you should expect a play to ever work when the box is like that. Literally, you have no chance of that being successful unless somebody falls down or they trip on the turf or something magical like that happens. You have no chance. So, Vet, I'm going to wrap this up. Penn State, thank God it is a noon game. The noon Scarlet out for the Iowa game was just a very quiet, mundane milquetoast atmosphere, which is what you expect from noon games. There's no energy compared to Wisconsin or Notre Dame at night. So I think that's a huge advantage for us going into Happy Valley, which is easily the hardest stadium to play in the entire country, especially when the Buckeyes come to town, because they get real drunk and real excited. And, it seems like that's always a night game. And we really lucked out that Fox is really pushing the big noon kickoff, which, again, I know you hate. I know I hate it. I think it should be a night game. But for our sake, I'm glad it's not a night game, because I'm a guy that I've lost there once. I've won there twice as a coach and a player. But your thoughts going forward this week as we get into Penn State prep?
It's going to be a tough game. Penn State always plays us tough up there. And I think anybody expecting this to be a blowout is probably setting themselves up for a little bit of disappointment. I have every confidence Ohio State wins, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. And, I'll take a 1-point victory right now at Penn State, just win and survive and move on and be happily wrong. Hopefully it's indicating to me thinks it's going to be close.
Yeah, I think that the noon is huge. I think that, Clifford being their quarterback, who is not good, is huge. I'm glad they haven't moved to Drew Aller, who can actually throw the ball. That's a big benefit to us. But we don't generally, no matter how big of a talent difference there is, like when we go out there, we never really play and just blow the doors off of them. My senior year, it was probably as close as we got. I think it was like 30, maybe like 38-17 or 38-10 or something like that. But 05, we were better than they were, and we lost 17-10. 03, when we were better than they were, way better than we were, we barely beat them. It kind of took a totally terrible call where Ben Hartsock literally dropped a ball and they ruled it a catch. And this is pre-replay. So we got out of there and it was like, Oh my God, I can't believe that they called that a catch. But it was it was a funny era. And then 16, obviously they beat us. They blocked the field goal. Got James Franklin like a 100-year extension. Basically got him paid for the rest of his life off of one game. Yeah, it's just a much different game when they come to the shoe, because at the shoe we've handled them pretty good. Even 17 was a different story, because that was probably the best Penn State team they've had since '94 with Saquon and those guys. But it's a really interesting rivalry, because we don't speak of them like they're Michigan, but it's the only team in the Big Ten that we play every single year other than Michigan. So real interesting rivalry. I'm excited for it. Any final thoughts of that as we wrap this thing up?
No, just it's going to be a fun week of preparation. We're going to have a lot of good insight as to the game plan. I think Ohio State's going to have some wrinkles in store for Penn State, and I think there may be some things with tempo that Ohio State does that are interesting as well. So if you want to find out more about it, we'll talk about it at BuckeyeScoop.com.
All right, my man, I'm going to wrap this thing up. As always, we appreciate you. We are on BuckeyeScoop.com. We are grinding on the board. Recently, if you've tried to join the site, we had a little minor snafu with some of our tech stuff. Got that fixed. So any of you guys have been trying to sign up, we fixed it today, and we had 10 new people sign up. So we appreciate you guys that keep banging on the door. Our site's growing, our subscribership's growing. Please share this video. Any of your friends that want the most in-depth conversation about Ohio State football, the most honest conversation about Ohio State football, that is what we're here for. We really strive to bring you guys some great inside scoop. As always, I'd like for you to shout out where you're from in the comments. Shout out where you're from. Shout out who your team MVPs are. And give me an early in the week score prediction for the Penn State game. Appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I will see you on the message boards at BuckeyeScoop.com. You guys have a great week. I will talk to you tomorrow. Go Bucks.